Hello, my name's John Hartledge. Welcome to my channel. Well, this episode promises to be at least spritzy, if not a lot of fun. We're going to check out Spain's famous sparkling wine, Cava. We're going to do a Cava Brut, and I'm going to show you how to save a little money. Yeah. Let's chat wine. So, Cava. Actually, in Spanish, that means cave. In 1970, they decided the name for this product to be something different than French champagne, because when you see a sparkling bottle like this, it looks like champagne. But it's very important in talking about Spanish Cava to differentiate it from champagne. Now, champagne is divine. That is not to be denied. But champagne is also a lot more expensive. Now, in Spain, they use Cava on a daily basis, almost like the Italians use Prosecco. But here is the interesting rub. Almost all of Prosecco is produced with a technique called the charmat. And that just means that it's naturally carbonated in a big steel vat, pressurized vat. So you have natural carbonation, but the yeast is much less in contact with the actual wine while it's doing this sealed fermentation. So you have bigger bubbles and you don't quite as much yeastiness. Well, Cava is produced pretty much exactly the way champagne is, but typically not as much aging. And the grapes are not as expensive. And it's an interesting story, one that's worth mentioning because it absolutely has everything to do with price and bottle. And like I said, saving a little money. What we want to do, we want to have something sparkling, we want to have something tingle the palate, we want to have something celebratory, maybe on a daily basis, maybe we just like it, but we don't want to spend 50, 60, 70 bucks every single day, 4 times a week to have a champagne. We're gonna have a Cava. Now I splurged a little. This is Gran Reserva Cava, so it's a little more expensive. Come on, 15 bucks for a Gran Reserva. That's 15 months of aging. There is probably a little bit of Chardonnay and a little Pinot Noir in there too, the 2 main grapes, as I said, from Champagne. So you got a little bit of that, but the primary grape is called Xarello, white grape. So it was really in the 1851 was first kind of the introduction to this style of wine when a very famous Spanish wine producer was selling his wine and promoting it in the Champagne region of France. It wasn't that long a trip, but hey, Spain, France. And he was promoting it, and he was introduced to the Champagne style. That was 1851. All of a sudden, phylloxera came in and wiped out all the red wines from Pendes. So this is the Pendes region. 95% of Cava in Spain is produced in Pendes, part of Catalonia, Spain. But the producer was introduced to this great style and said, this is beautiful. But then phylloxera wiped out most of the red grapes, and red was certainly more popular in Spain, certainly more used. They decided to replant with white grapes, and they decided to make sparkling wine. So Penedès in Spain is known as the place for champagne-style sparkling wine. They can't use the name champagne. They can't even say champagne style. What they say, and you need to look on the bottle, is méthode or método tradicional. And this was the producer, Rabentos, Josep Rabentos. Like, think of Jose. No way, Jose. Josep Rabentos. And I hope I'm pronouncing it right. You don't watch those accents like Penedès. Penedès has that little accent gravo. Accent gravo at the end, that tells you where to put the stress. Pendes. And you let the N and the D kind of slip off in Spanish. Like Raventos, it looks like a V. No, Raventos. There's a nice sound to that, huh? So now when I pour, I can always use the punt. There's a punt in that bottle. Why? The traditional punt came from champagne production. Because the champagne bottle or the sparkling wine bottle or the Cava bottle is put upside down with the yeast after wine's produced. One fermentation. They take the wine, put it in the bottle. Second fermentation in the bottle. That's what gives you all those bubbles inside there because it's a sealed fermentation. They put it upside down. They use the punt for the thumb to riddle the bottle a little bit each day. It gets turned and that shakes the yeast a little and has them, the dead ones, going down to the very bottom because the bottle's upside down. They freeze that, take it off, put a new cork in it with a little bit of sugar and yeast. So this is live when you open it. Notice how careful I was. It wasn't aimed at anybody. You usually have your hand ready to go or a towel in a hand because sometimes that cork goes flying. You always see it at the World Series. They just won the pennant and all the things. Do not do that to your champagne. You lose all the bubbles. That's why champagnes have a glass like this, fluted or tuliped, because it holds the bubbles in a little longer. It doesn't let as much air in. I, and most wine adjudicators, wine specialists, wine enthusiasts will use a regular white wine glass, which is real nice too, but it's because it's wine and you want to evaluate the wine, not just the bubbles. I like to get my nose in the glass, so I need a little wider body, as you can tell. So I'm going to use my little logoed wine glass, Let's Chat Wine, and I'm going to pour a little in there. Now, you'll see the little bubbles coming up? Little bubbles, little bubbles. Bubbles are going to dissipate pretty quickly, but then that means I get to evaluate the wine. So I'm going to actually leave this right here so you can see it. I love this name, Segura, Viudas. This is Grape Reserva, and this was 15 months aging before they released it. So that was extra time in oak casks and an extra time in the bottle for that yeast to be in touch with it and give it lots of flavors. Oh, bread, yeast, nuts. Now, when you go to squeegee that, boom, it really creates a lot of nucleation points. Big froth inside the mouth. So that's kind of a fun experience, but if you're at the table, you probably don't want to squeegee because it may just, so don't do that. So let's do like a regular taste and see how it hits. So you can still chew the wine. You can still chew it a little bit to get more taste buds coated, but you don't have to squeeze it, so there's no eruption. But man, it's delightful. This, love it. Still one of my favorites. Segura, Viudas. About 5 really nice producers, and that is one of the best. Right there. It's different than champagne, but it's also lower priced. A daily price, saving the money, and still enjoying the vino. Come see me again. Subscribe, sip, share, ding the bell so you get a notification when we can get a little more silly. Cheers. One important note. You need to have a champagne recorker because you don't want to lose that beautiful carbon dioxide if you have a little bit left over, and then you can put it in the fridge. But so usually you'll have something. I love this kind because it has that clip that comes back down around, because this is your classic. It's almost like a wing, but sometimes you can't get it around that base. Now, this one happened to work. This is more like a champagne style bottle, but if it's not a champagne style bottle, you might not be able to clamp it properly. This one works perfectly. But the challenge, you put that in the fridge, somebody hits that wrong or the ketchup moves over and hits it, that's coming off. And then you got a mess right here, and you may even get shot in the eye with that metal. That's almost like a bullet. Boom, nice projectile. Look at that. It comes around, you can find those. That is just beautiful, and nothing is getting through that clamp. Beautiful. That can just sit. Yeah. Well, use it more than. No, we got this. You guys can cut that, right? Part of that?
Yeah, it's fine.
You cut that?